Hi everyone! We're going to be heading into the future with Disney Pixar reading their book, Wally. Here we go! If you had lived during the 29th century, you might have been cruising aboard a luxury spaceship while Earth turned lonely and silent, awaiting your return. You might have thought the planet was completely desolate, but it wasn't. There was someone still left on Earth, and he had a very important job to do. He was the only one suited for the job, and when he was finished, all the people would be able to return. His name was Wally, which stood for Waste Allocation Load Litter Earth Class, and he spoke in electronic beeps. Wally was a little trash compacting unit, and each and every day he went about his job of cleaning up the polluted planet. But even though Wally was programmed to compact trash, he thought beyond his directive. Wally looked for treasure in the trash, little discoveries every day. He had a pet, too, a cockroach, but he was still lonely. On his way home, Wally passed the holographic billboards that played the BNL commercials. Centuries earlier, BNL, by and large, had made these ads to invite humans to space for vacation-like cruises. BNL was the superstore that had controlled the entire planet. Its CEO had promised to clean up Earth while the people were away. On one particular day, Wally found a new pair of treads, making the ride home a bit smoother. And that home was one of Wally's favorite places. It was an old trailer, and Wally always sped up a bit when it came into view. After settling inside the trailer, Wally went about his routine, putting away the little treasures he had found in the trash during the day. He also turned on a video of Hello Dolly, as he did every evening. As usual, Wally gazed at the video, hoping he might actually fall in love with someone just like the people in the movie. Then he wouldn't be lonely anymore. The next morning, Wally gathered up solar energy for the day and was out and about, cleaning and collecting more trash. He found a fire extinguisher, though he did not know what it was. To Wally, this was an intriguing new object. But when he pressed the lever, he was propelled into a loop-the-loop that landed him in a pile of garbage. Wally made an electronic moan. He wasn't sure that he liked this red thing. And then something very different happened. Something that changed Wally's life forever. It all started when Wally found a new kind of treasure. It was soft and green. Breep! Wally was filled with wonder as he gazed at it. Then he carefully placed the delicate green thing in an old boot. He did not know what it was, but he could tell it was precious. Later that evening, Wally heard a loud, roaring sound. A spaceship landed in a fiery blaze, stirring up a dust storm. It left off a probot sleek, white with bright blue eyes. Wally fell in love in a robotic second. Her name was Eve. Wally followed Eve like a puppy dog. He couldn't stay away from her. She seemed to be looking for something. Wally wanted to make friends with Eve, but she seemed wary of strangers. So when Eve heard something behind her, she fired her blaster arm. Luckily, Wally was protected by a boulder. Later, Eve saw the cockroach amidst a pile of old tires. Kablam! Uh-oh. Luckily, Wally's pet hopped out the hole Eve had blasted. The friendly cockroach climbed onto Eve's arm, tickling her. She giggled. After that, Eve seemed to accept that Wally would follow her everywhere she went. One day, Eve stopped. They could not communicate very well, but Wally showed her how he compacted trash. Eve told him that her program directive was a secret. Then the two robots introduced themselves. Eve, Wally repeated, mispronouncing the most beautiful name he had ever heard. And that is when the sandstorm hit. Wally tried to warn Eve of its dangers, but she did not understand. Wally, she screamed as she felt the sand swirling around. Rescuing her and taking her to his home, Wally delighted in showing Eve his treasures. Eve was interested in everything in Wally's trailer. She had fun. Then Wally turned on his video of Hello Dolly. He danced as the music in the movie played. Eve tried dancing too, but she spun so fast that she broke a few things, including Wally's eye. Luckily, he had spare parts. Then something really strange happened. Wally brought out the little green thing in its boot. Eve dropped everything else Wally had shown her. She zeroed in on the green thing, locked it inside her, and completely shut down. Her only sign of life was a green flashing light. Eve! Wally tapped her timidly. Eve didn't answer or move. Wally tried everything to bring her back to him. He recharged her in the morning sunlight. He took her for walks, took her on a boat ride, and put an umbrella over her to shield her from the rain. Still, she slept. Then one day, the probe ship returned to pick up Eve. Wally didn't hesitate. He left his job and his home, taking just a moment to gesture to the cockroach to stay put on Earth, and he followed his heart. Wally raced to the probe ship as its engines fired. He held on tight as it blasted into space with Eve. Space was full of wonders. As Eve slept inside the ship, Wally got a view of Earth that he had never seen before. Stars spun around him, and the sun gave Wally a powerful recharge. Wally reached out to touch the icy rings around Saturn. He wished Eve could share the sights that swept by him. At least he was near her, and could keep following her wherever she was going. Finally, the ship slowed. Ooh! Wally looked in awe at an enormous luxury spaceship. Eve's tiny probe ship approached and docked on board the massive starliner. It was the Axiom, the pride of the B&L fleet of spaceships. It housed a city full of people living in luxury until their return to Earth. Once in the loading dock, Wally immediately found Eve. Unfortunately, poor Wally was filthy from cubbing trash for centuries, and one bot named M.O. had a very strong directive to clean, clean, clean. He began his relentless pursuit to clean Wally. Wally watched closely as Gopher, an assistant bot to the captain, transported Eve away. Wally raced after her. M.O. followed. Following Eve through the heart of the Axiom passengers area, Wally saw thousands of people and housing compartments. Weak sunlight filtered down from a fake sun. Wally took it all in, waving to passengers riding by in hovercars. They hardly moved. One fell off his chair and seemed helpless. Wally was the only one who seemed to notice, and he helped the man, John, back onto his chair. Wally pushed forward, seeing Gopher driving Eve onto a monorail. Wally chased them until he was blocked by Mary, a human passenger who didn't notice Wally or anything else except whatever showed up on her holoscreen. Desperate, Wally accidentally broke one of her side speakers and shut down all of her electronics. Mary blinked and looked around as if seeing life for the first time. She moved, and Wally was finally able to move forward. Wally zipped around Mary and followed Eve all the way to the bridge of the starship. On the bridge, the captain and his autopilot, called Auto, controlled the ship, guiding it through the galaxy. Wally stayed hidden as he watched Gopher deliver Eve to Auto. Then, whoosh! Wally felt an automatic door open beneath him. Yipes! He landed in the captain's quarters. The captain lived just below the bridge and, like his passengers, had become very used to having things done for him. As the captain did less, Auto did more. Other bots did more too. A beautician bot, massage bot, and wardrobe bot got the captain ready for the day. The captain didn't have to lift a finger. Wally, still hidden, rose with the captain back to the bridge. The captain pushed a button and Eve woke up. "Eva!" Wally gasped, delighted. "Wally?" Surprised, Eve motioned for him to be quiet, and pre-recorded a holographic video showed the head of BNL. "Greetings and congratulations," he said cheerily. Apparently, Eve's directive was to find signs of life on Earth, and she had done that when she had taken the green thing, a plant, from Wally back in his trailer. "It means it's time to go home," the BNL recording announced. While the captain read the Operation Recolonize manual, Wally excitedly beeps at Eve, but she just wanted him to stay hidden. She had work to do. Next step, the captain pressed Eve's flashing green light. Her chest cavity swung open, but the plant was gone. The captain looked puzzled. "Probe memory is faulty," Auto reported in his monotone voice. "So then, we're not going to Earth," the captain sighed. "Send her to the repair ward," the captain continued. Then he spotted Wally. The little bot waved happily and shook the captain's hand. "And fix that robot as well. Have it hosed down or something. It's filthy." Eve gave Wally a furious glance. She thought he had taken the plant, and to make matters worse, M.O. was still on the trail of Wally's dirty tracks as they all headed to the repair ward. After Wally had gone, the captain stared at the dirt the bot had left on his hand. "Analyze," he told his resource computer, provider of all information. "Analysis, foreign contaminant, commonly known as soil, dirt, or earth," the computer droned. The captain actively began searching for more information. Wally had left his mark on the captain too. Lots of bots filled the repair ward. The order lines locked Wally between a beautician bot that made him look ugly and a vacuum bot that sprayed him with dust. Wally stayed focused on Eve in another room. They took off her arm. Wally thought they were hurting her. Wally did not know that Eve had done this before. He did not know that her blaster arm always came off for a checkup. Wally freed himself, using his laser to cut through energy bands. He charged into the room and grabbed Eve's blaster arm. Eve tried to tell him everything was fine, but Wally accidentally shot out the repair ward control panel. All the reject bots were freed. They cheered for Wally and carried him on their shoulders out into the hall. They were never going back to that repair ward. Eve seemed to be the only one concerned about what lay ahead. She was right. The steward bots who kept order and control on the axiom lined the hall in front of the reject bots. "Halt," said one. The reject bots froze. Eve took action. She took back her blaster arm from Wally. As she reattached it, a steward bot took her picture. Flash! The image soon was on display all over the axiom with the warning, "Caution, rogue robots." Soon, the reject bots kicked into high gear, fighting off the stewards to help Wally escape with Eve. The escape pod bay had a console that controlled the escape pods. Eve led Wally to one of the pods. She wanted to send him back to Earth. He would be safe, and she could finish her directive. But Wally wouldn't leave without her. Before they could argue, someone approached. Hidden, Wally and Eve watched as Gopher appeared and put something in the escape pod. It was the plant. Wally sneaked into the pod to get Eve's plant back, just as Gopher launched the pod into deep space. "Eee!" screamed Wally. He pushed every button to try to stop the pod. Every button, even the one he should never have touched. "Pod will self-destruct in 10 seconds, the pod's computer informed him. He had to find a way out. Wally spotted a fire extinguisher, just like the one he'd found on Earth so long ago. Meanwhile, Eve had propelled herself into space and was zooming closer and closer to the pod when it exploded. Stunned, Eve stopped in space, and then, whoosh! Wally zoomed past, riding his fire extinguisher. Relieved to see him safe, Eve raced to catch up to him. That is when Wally showed Eve that he had saved the planet. Delighted, she leaned in towards him, and an arc of electricity passed between their foreheads. A robot kiss. Happily, they began a fun and romantic dance through space. Inside the ship, one passenger noticed them, Mary. She had been fascinated by the world around her ever since Wally had disabled her holoscreen. Mary grabbed a passenger and disabled his holoscreen. Blinking, John saw Wally. He was the bot who had helped John into his hover chair when he had fallen off. Smiling, he held Mary's hand. Back inside the ship, Wally waited impatiently as Eve flew up a garbage chute to the bridge and delivered the plant to the captain. The captain excitedly watched the holographic images Eve had recorded on Earth. At first disappointed, he soon changed his mind. If the plant could grow on Earth, then people could return, and he would lead them. Meanwhile, Eve saw how Wally had cared for her while she was shut down. She finally understood love. Wally had come so close to holding Eve's hand that he wanted to do it again. He was tired of waiting for Eve at the door to the garbage chute. He clambered into the chute and started the steep climb towards the bridge. Maybe this time, if he could just reach her, they could hold hands. Up on the bridge, Otto refused to follow the captain's order to turn on the ship's holodetector so that it could verify the plant's origin and send the axiom home to Earth. Instead, he showed the captain a video. Long ago, B and L had simply given up on Earth. "We have to go back," the captain insisted. "Sir," Otto explained to the captain, "orders are, do not return to Earth." "That was hundreds of years ago," the captain argued. "Now look at the planet, green and growing. It's living proof." But the captain was making a hopeless argument. Gopher hurled the plant over to the trash chute. Down it went, and Wally caught it, bringing it right back up to the bridge. The captain was thrilled until, zap! Otto electrocuted Wally. The little bot fell to the floor, completely disabled. Otto sent both Wally and Eve down the trash chute to the ship's enormous garbage bay. Eve barely managed to save Wally from being ejected with the trash into space. M.O. helped too. He was still following Wally. Eve tried to hold Wally's hand to give him what he really wanted, but Wally gave her the plant. Eve realized that she no longer cared about her directive. She cared about Wally. Wally said, trying to say Earth. If Eve wanted to fix him, she had to go back to his truck on Earth. She had seen him repair himself with spare parts there. Now Eve did want the plant, but she wanted it to get the axiom back to Earth so that she could save Wally. She blasted a hole for them to escape. Then she carried Wally and M.O. up and out of the garbage bay. As Eve and Wally moved up to a hallway in the ship, the stewards once again surrounded them. Just then, the reject bots began to pour into the hall to help their hero, Wally. Emerging from their hiding places, the reject bots bravely battled the steward bots. Eve flew Wally towards the captain to return the plant to him. She hoped the captain would deactivate the holodetector, returning the entire ship to Earth. The captain saw Wally and Eve on a monitor in his quarters. He managed to turn on the ship's intercom, telling Eve to go straight to the holodetector instead of going to him. But she still needed to turn on the holodetector. So he tricked Otto into thinking he had the plant. "Not possible," said Otto, but he went down to the captain's room to be sure. The captain leaped out and grabbed hold of Otto. "You're not getting away from me," the captain shouted. Otto dragged the captain up onto the bridge. During their struggle, the captain managed to hit the holodetector button. Eve and Wally raced to the Lido deck where the holodetector was rising. But on the bridge, Otto overcame the captain again and deactivated the holodetector. Wally and Eve arrived at the Lido deck just in time to see the holodetector sinking. Wally jammed himself under the detector to stop its descent. "No!" shouted Otto. He punched the holodetector button as Wally fought against the sinking machine. The captain watched in horror. It was time for drastic measures. The captain stood up. He walked to Otto and flicked off his power switch. "You are hereby relieved of duty," the captain said to the disabled Otto. The captain grabbed Otto, who now seemed like a regular ship's wheel, and righted the ship. The passengers screamed and turned to cheers. Eve put the plant in the holodetector. The computer droned. "Planet origin verified. Global reparation complete. Set course for Earth." The holodetector rose up off Wally. He fell to the floor, crushed and broken. Wally, Eve held him close as soon as she saw him. He had risked his life for her and for all the people on the Axiom. But at what cost? Eve called his name again. Wally didn't answer. The Axiom landed on Earth. The captain started to walk down the gangplank, but the passengers refused. Eve quickly whisked away, racing to fly Wally to his home and repair him. She stopped for one brief moment to pick up Wally's patient pet cockroach. The cockroach hopped onto Eve as she flew off. The reject bots clambered after them. Inside the truck, Eve rummaged through Wally's spare parts. She raced through the repairs. When she was done, she blasted a hole in the roof. Sunlight poured in to recharge Wally. Wally woke up. Eve held out her hand, but Wally just stared at it. Then he began compacting his treasures as if they were trash. He rolled out of the truck, ignoring Eve. Wally rolled past her, rolled past his cockroach, and rolled past the reject bots. He had work to do. Compact trash. That was his directive. Eve couldn't believe it. Angrily, she tried to shake him. Then, in despair, she took his hands and said, "Wally?" Heartbroken, Eve leaned towards him. A spark of energy, the robot kiss, passed between them as she grasped his hand. "Eva?" Wally moved his hands as his eyes began to light up and focus, and the first thing he saw was Eve. And in that moment, Wally's greatest dream came true. He and Eve would be together forever. Back at the ship, the passengers blinked at their old home. The captain found a spot on Earth and dug a hole, gently placing the plant in the ground. And Eve and Wally held hands as they watched the sunset. Thanks for watching, guys. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. I have heaps more Disney storybook read-alongs on my channel. See you next time.